Hello. I decided I would just do a small video on just a couple tips that I learned through playing Int Stacking. Some of these things are questions people have asked before, but most aren't. Some are useful maybe to you and some won't be. But I figured I would just make this just to get some tips out there because it's it's a build worth doing that for. So I'll start with my favorite thing, which is just tech that I knew existed but didn't really think to ever apply to this, but that is if you don't know what the tech is, I'll just explain it. There's a way that you can get Overleech, which is one of the reasons that you would want to click on the Trickster's tendencies to get Overleech. There's a way that you can actually get Overleech on a Deadeye. I was reminded of this in the Gauntlet watching some people playing. You can set this up in a way where if you have the Ghost Dance node, you can't recover Energy Shield to above evasion rating. So if your evasion is lower than your ES, you'll never hit full, no matter what. And what that means is, the way that Leech works is it only stops when you hit your max ES or life or mana. Leech is always, the effect is removed as soon as you're topped off. Because you're never topped off, the Leech never turns off. And I've been playing with this all day today. And it feels really good. Especially when you're doing like Abyss and something like Ubers. Those are like the two best things because, you know, you're doing the Abyss, you want to be looting while you're running with the Abyss. And so it's nice because I'm sure if you have done it before without the Overleech stuff, you sometimes will just randomly die because you're trying to pick up loot at the same time as doing the Abyss and something just catches you off guard and hits you a few times and you're dead. This basically prevents that issue. It's just like way smoother, way safer, way more brainless type of farming. And so the way that you would set this up is you just want to fine-tune your character to have just slightly lower evasion than your energy shield. The way that I did this is I took off Grace, which is what I was using, and I replaced it with Haste because there's not really much else to replace it with. And then I think I was like 4K over still or something like that, and then I started tweaking with my flasks. Like you'll see I have a flask that has only 50% evasion, even though I have one that has 60. I intentionally made it 50. And then you can even just like using kindling orbs to lower the percentage of the effect on the flask, like the Jade flask, or if you wanted to lower the evasion on this too. You kind of just keep tinkering with the flask effect and the flask tier modifier without Grace on, and you'll get there. Because you can kind of force it to be anywhere between like 14 and 24k without Grace, just through like flasks and intelligence scaling your evasion. So that's the way I did it. There might be a couple other methods you could probably do, but like maybe you run Grace and you just take this off, and then maybe you can get it that way, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so the Overleech feels really good, and that's not the only thing that's good about it, right? Because there's like things in the game that you can do with that. Like you'll notice I don't have Ghost Reaver anymore because I actually just don't need it. I stopped using Sacred Wisps, by the way. Like if you guys have lag at all while you're playing the build, this is another tip that you can take Sacred Wisps off. It's not a mandatory support, and it lags the fuck out of computers because it literally triples the amount of kinetic blast on the screen. So if you have issues with FPS, try to do that. It has made my maps like a million times more fluid. So I took Sacred Wisp off and just replaced it with crit damage. And then because I'm leeching at all times now, I was like, you know, maybe I could take off Ghost Reaver then and just put on Energy Leech. Now, it's important to mention that you miss out on the 15% more while on full Energy Shield. You're never going to be full Energy Shield, so that doesn't work. But it does give you a shit ton of Leech and 25% more damage. It just feels better. Like, I really like this setup. It's definitely not the most optimal one. Especially if you're killing like Ubers or something, like you need as much DPS as you can get, like that kind of stuff. And this definitely isn't the highest DPS support you can run, but I just think it feels really good for mapping. And that's what I'm doing right now, just doing Abyssing stuff. So if you're planning on doing Abyss or like Breach, stuff like that, this Overleech setup with the Energy Leech support, it feels really good, and I would suggest trying it. I'm having a really good time with it. So yeah, that covers the Overleech thing. Worth looking into. And now I'll talk about the ways that you can deal with Reflect, which most of you probably already know these things, but I'll just go over the ways that you can do it, which there's kind of like 3 ways. So first, the easiest one, when you have a Mage Blood, is crafted modifier, 50%, 55% reduced reflected damage taken during effect. If you have the full 95% effect scaling from your flask mods, then you will get full reflect immunity with this flask, just single slot. So I always pick one flask to just hot swap for any maps that rolled reflect on either of them rolls themselves, because it lets you use that modifier. If you deal with the reflect, then it lets you open up a modifier when you're for your regex when you're rolling maps, which is very good. Each time you open one of those, you're saving like probably 10 to 20 C. Well, maybe like 5 to 10 C per map roll. It's like that big of a difference, honestly. So that's good. Another thing you can do is the obvious one, which is awakened elemental damage with attacks. If it's only reflect elemental, and you like avoid frost blinking into giant groups. Once this gem is level 4, I think, you get the skill it's linked to does no, it can't be reflected elemental damage, so that's another thing. But if you don't have a Mage Blood, and you don't have this gem, or it has Fizz Reflect and you can't handle the Fizz Reflect, then what you can do is you take this Pantheon, which I forgot to take off. This one, 50% reduced reflected damage, and if it's elemental damage that you're trying to deal with, you can come down here, unspec some other place, 5 points, come down here, and you can grab the Mastery, 60% reduced reflected elemental damage taken, or if it's physical, then you can do the same thing with this wheel right here. This also has a 60% reduced for Fizz damage, so for either one, I think if you don't have the Mage Blood and you don't have the easy solutions and you're rolling maps that have both, you probably shouldn't bother, because taking 10 points away from the tree somewhere else is just too much to ask. Especially if you're doing Abyss, where you already have to take 4 points from something just for the auto opening chest thing. So those are your ways of dealing with Reflect. Don't think there's any other ways, at least none that are really like doable. But anyway, yeah, that's how I deal with Reflect those, just like this. If you have Mage Blood, it's really easy. Yeah, so that's that. And then on the topic of map modifiers, the way that you would deal with it, so I just don't allow the block attack damage modifier, like T17 modifier, to actually, is it T17 exclusive? I can't remember. I don't know, but I don't let it. It's not on my regex. Like, I don't accept it on my regex, but you can. It's not that bad if it rolls on a risk scare, because it's going to stay at 50%, so it's not that bad. But if you want to open that up as a regex mod, then you have to just basically be willing to come down here and grab, for 6 points, this wheel and take the monsters cannot block your attacks. What you should probably do is, if you're willing to run those maps, instead of having to respec a bunch of times, just when you have this spec, just do all of the maps that have that mod first. Same for like reflect stuff. Like if you have maps that have a lot of reflect you still want to run, if you don't want to keep respecing over again, then just run all of those ones in sequence first, and then you won't have to keep respecing. And here's a little thing that somebody, I'll put the comment on the screen on my budget video. Something somebody enlightened me to, which is, if you, on your cluster tool setup over here, your split personalities, they're over here. They have the longest travel from there. This is the best you can do. I didn't really know this, and I never really thought about it, but if you allocate the points up here instead of over here, this jewel is actually like more efficient. You're getting 3 extra. Or is it 4 extra? I'm not actually sure if that counts as 3 or 4, but you can see this one's 52, this one's 57, so it's just like a really, really little tiny thing, but you know, you may as well do it because it's not cost nothing. Just slightly more efficient. And the last thing I will go over in terms of me live presenting it on the screen here. After this, I'll just play some footage in the background while I talk about the next few tips. So, some people have been asking the best way to deal with corrupted blood. Now, obviously, you can fit in a rare jewel. Like, I'm using one right now. you can basically use it in place of like Emperor's Mastery or Emperor's Wit, whichever one you're using. Those are good options for replacing. So you can obviously get a Corrupted Blood Jewel. You could even do it with something like this. Like you could probably actually get, like if I wanted to, I could probably get a Corrupted Blood immune attribute Light of Meaning for, I'm assuming probably like 20 or 30 divines or something like that. I haven't actually looked because I'm not that interested, because my personal favorite way to deal with Corrupted Blood is just using this, which just makes it so the max amount of Corrupted Blood that you can get is 5 stacks instead of, what is it, 12? Might be 10, I don't remember, but anything past 5 isn't good, so. But you also take 25% reduced physical damage over time while moving, which does apply to Corrupted Blood, so it's also 25% less damage kind of taken from that. And then you can also use this to deal with it if you wanted to, just another 10% reduced. Also, I need to get my fucking Pantheons. I still haven't done that. All the secondary ones. They just never feel that important to me, but it's definitely worth doing. It's just, don't copy me. Yeah, there's like basically the 2 ways to do it. If you have the Overleech, it feels a lot better to do this too. Like before I had the Overleech, it didn't, like it still felt good and it was my favorite way to deal with it because it's free, but it certainly is even more impactful when you have the Overleech to compensate. Okay, and then from here, I'll just talk about a few other things with this gameplay in the background. This is just an Abyss map I ran for like some B-roll. First thing I want to talk about is Nimis on KB of clustering, because I've had people ask like, should they use it on KB of clustering? And I'll try to explain the issue of it as best as I can without actually visualizing it, but basically, Kinetic Blast of clustering only has 1 projectile, right? So there's an issue of when you're mapping, you need that projectile to hit a pack. If it hits the pack does go bye-bye with clustering. But the best way that clustering works while mapping is the Spellslinger Tornado tech. Like that's what makes it actually shine with Awakened Fork. And then a lot of people take, they'll use like an Impossible Escape, and they'll take the split shot things here, so you get even more forks with clustering, which is nice. But the problem is if you are relying on the Spellslinger Tornado, which you will be for mapping to feel really smooth, you know, more than half of the time your single projectile is not even going to collide with the Spellslinger Tornado. So it gets really awkward. It's definitely doable, but you kind of like have to just run into packs of monsters, and it's not really worth it. And the way KB works with bossing, it seems like it doesn't really matter very much, but I'm sure that if you're bossing, it would be okay. Like if you just stood inside of the monster, then it's probably okay, but for mapping it feels really awkward, so I don't suggest it. Something else I'll mention too, because I forgot to put it in the budget video for the, well, that budget video I made about the build, which is the character I'm on now. The shield called Adziri's Reflection is like a 1 divine shield this league for some reason. I don't actually know what happened and why it's not worth anything really this league, because it's usually like pretty expensive. If you're on a budget, that is like insanely value, and the fact that I didn't put it in the budget guide is like kind of a fail, because it was the same price at League Start too, so it's just genuinely a really, really good option. Like my character would be happy wearing it even right now. So do pick that up if you're trying to save the most money possible. On that topic of league starting, so if you want to league start Kinetic Blast for some reason, it's important to note that you will not be league starting it as an int stacker. That's just not possible. You can't do that. So what you would do, and I'll pull up PoE Ninja here for a second, is you would do the Headhunter variant, and the issue is, you know, Headhunter isn't cheap at League Start either. That being said, I think maybe the build can still clear pretty well without having the Headhunter. This is the problem. It's like, this is if you wanted to leak. I don't think you really should. But if you did, you would definitely do the Deadeye approach, not Trickster. You do the Deadeye approach, and you would just scale as much flat damage as you possibly could on your wand, and like get this mirror pretty honest, surely not very expensive. And you'll be able to clear, probably breaches would be like the best thing. These boots are also really nice. They give you chain, so you get 2 chain. Quite nice. This would be your ideal starter thing. I'm actually curious. I'm gonna look at like day 2 and see what people are doing. That guy had a Headhunter already at that point. I want to find some that don't have it. Yeah, see, something like what this guy's doing. I don't understand these numbers, though. Like, he has literally 0 resistances. I don't know what that's about. Oh, he's using Inspired Learnings. Let's find one that's more reasonable. Like, these are all really, really squishy. I do not approve of these characters. But apparently it works, so if you really wanted to do it, this would be your best way. And while we're on this topic, actually, like, I'm going to cover this in a different video, just like general tips and stuff, but I want to just mention it now. That PoE Ninja is the absolute most valuable resource you can have when it comes to finding what you need to do with your build. Like, before you come to me and ask questions, about the build, for example, not because I don't want to answer them, but because, like, this is just for your own benefit. I'm not always going to have the best answer, and I'm also not going to be immediately able to respond. You should just look up, like, say, for example, I'm playing, I don't know, let's say I'm playing Deadeye, Kinetic Blast. You choose those 2 things, and I want to upgrade it into a Nimis in my 2nd rank slot, but I don't know what support gem to replace returning projectiles with, for example. And this is a really simple example, but it'll work. So what you do is you go look for all the people who are wearing a Nimis, and when you're at this place, just start doing this. Open up all these characters that are wearing these same things that you are, and hover over their thing, and what did they replace it with? And it looks like this guy's got a couple that I didn't know people were doing this. Inspiration, Damage, Full Life, and Trinity. That's interesting. It's because it's Headhunter, isn't it? Yeah. So I'll take off Headhunter. Do Mage's Blood. Forgot about that. I'm looking at these builds, not... So you just open up these people. Okay, and this guy replaced Return Proj with Crit Multi. You can tell because all 4 of these ones are like nearly mandatory, except for Sacred Wisps. And then this guy, it's like, okay, what's he do? He has increased crit strikes and crit multi. I would like to assume that he added the increased crit strikes because that one's a really low priority one. He's also just, I don't really think that's the right play, but that's okay. You just try to find the commonalities between them, which ones are doing the thing. And here's this one where he used crit multi. That's going to be his 6th one. Because what you can do is you can also search without Nimis and see what the most common thing is in place of what the crit multi is over here. And spoiler alert, it's returning projectiles. That's generally the gem that gets replaced, or that replaces that, is the crit multi. So, like, this is how you find solutions and options for your builds. And you can get so specific with it too. Like, there's so many things you can search here. And just start looking through people's stuff that have similar characters to you, and just study them and you know, try to find the commonalities and sort of go with those, test it out, see if you like it, see if it fixes your problems, POB it, you know. But yeah, I'll have a future video with a much more sort of extensive guide on how to use PoE Ninja, because it's literally the best tool that exists in the world for PoE, so there you go. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to mention for this video is something that might be like controversial somehow, but I don't I don't see it as controversial, but I'm sure there's people who are going to be disagreeing with this anyway. Barrage support for Kinetic Blast does not seem to actually give more DPS than the Spellslinger Tornado setup on single target. It seems to actually lower it. And I have tested it on so many different setups, just really trying to get Barrage to do something at all. And it just was always underperforming. It was always lower. And so I think maybe you're supposed to just do it with the gloves, and you have the two setups, and maybe you get more damage out of that, because, yeah, like, Barrage swapping for your main link out of the question is worse for DPS. So if you have a 6 link, and you want to put in the Barrage support, just don't, because that is 100% not going to increase your damage. However, it's possible that the gloves, the ones that have like the projectile speed, gem, socketed gems get projectile speed, crit multi, and crit chance, those gloves, so they're acting as a 7 link, I think Barrage would outperform. I think it would do better. But this league in particular, I don't like it. That's something you do when your single target sucks, and because we have access to Doriani this league, we don't need a solution. We have Nimis and we have Doriani. So in a regular league, you would want to probably do that, but there's no reason to give up the energy shield on your gloves for those mods in this league. So that's my take on Barrage. And as far as everything else goes, I couldn't think of anything else to cover. So I hope a couple of these things were helpful. Hopefully it answers some questions that people generally have for almost any content I make on the build. And there you go. Thanks.